They laughed at me. My own family smirked, mocked, and whispered behind my back when I signed the papers to inherit what they all called a useless junk garage. But I had no idea that inside those rusted walls and dusty corners, a secret waited for me, a secret buried so deep it would change my life forever. Before I begin, I want to ask you something. From which beautiful country of the world are you watching right now? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because today's story is one you'll never forget. My name is Daniel Harris. I'm 34 years old, and until recently, I lived a quiet, almost uneventful life in a small American town. Nothing extraordinary ever happened to me. But everything shifted the day I inherited my late uncle's old garage. To most people, it was nothing more than a collapsing structure on the edge of town. The kind of place where paint peeled off like dried skin, where weeds grew tall enough to swallow the fences, and where the stench of oil and rust lingered in the air. To my family, it was an embarrassment, a joke. Daniel inherited junk, they sneered. But for me, the garage wasn't just property. It was the only thing left behind by an uncle I barely knew. He was a quiet, distant man, always keeping to himself, avoiding family gatherings, and disappearing for weeks without explanation. People called him eccentric. Some called him crazy. Now, I was about to find out why. When I first pushed open the garage doors, a wave of dust struck me in the face. The hinges groaned like an animal in pain. Inside, chaos reigned. Piles of broken machinery, stacks of newspapers yellowed by time, shelves cluttered with jars of rusted bolts and nails. Every corner screamed of abandonment. I almost believed the jokes. Maybe it really was just junk. But then, something caught my eye. In the farthest corner, beneath a moth-eaten tarp, I noticed a strange rectangular outline on the floor. It wasn't like the rest of the concrete, it had a faint seam, as if there was a hidden hatch waiting to be opened. My pulse quickened. Could it be? I dropped to my knees, brushing away the dust, and there it was, a heavy metal latch, embedded into the floor. I tugged at it, but it wouldn't budge. It felt as though decades of rust had locked it in place. My hands trembled as I fetched a crowbar from a nearby shelf. With a groan, the hatch lifted, and a stale draft of cold air rushed up from below. Beneath the garage was darkness. A narrow staircase descended into the earth, swallowed by shadows. I stood frozen. My heart pounded so violently I could hear it echo in my ears. Every instinct told me to close the hatch and walk away. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, and mine had already gripped me like a vice. I grabbed an old flashlight, its beam flickering weakly, and began my descent. The steps creaked under my weight, each one carrying me deeper into the unknown. At the bottom, the air grew colder, heavier, filled with the scent of damp stone. I stepped into a narrow passageway lined with shelves. But these weren't shelves of tools or junk. They were shelves of carefully arranged equipment, covered in dust but still preserved. Old radios, military-grade communication devices, strange gadgets with dials and wires I couldn't begin to understand. My uncle hadn't been a recluse. He had been hiding something. I ran the flashlight along the wall, and that's when I saw them, maps. Dozens of them. Some pinned, some rolled into tubes, some spread across a long wooden table. They weren't ordinary maps of cities or countries. They were hand-marked, filled with strange symbols, lines connecting locations, notes scribbled in a language I didn't recognize. My breath caught in my throat. What was this place? And then, something else. At the far end of the underground room, tucked beneath a sheet of canvas, I found a large metal trunk. Its locks were heavy, its edges reinforced. It looked military, maybe even older. I approached it slowly, my footsteps echoing off the stone walls. When I reached out, my hand hesitated just above the lid. A chill crawled down my spine. Why did it feel like opening this box would change everything? I took a deep breath, and lifted the canvas away. The trunk sat before me, silent, waiting. Dust swirled in the flashlight beam, and the silence of the underground chamber pressed against my ears like a warning. I gripped the lock. But before I could pull it open, The flashlight flickered violently, then went out. I was swallowed by complete, suffocating darkness. And in that moment of silence, deep beneath the garage floor, I heard something I can never forget. The sound of a faint metallic click, coming from the trunk itself. The darkness was absolute. My breath fogged in the stale air, and I froze, gripping the metal trunk, unable to move. My flashlight had died, leaving me blind in the underground chamber. But it wasn't just the dark that gripped me with fear. It was the sound. That faint metallic click, soft, deliberate, unnatural. It came from the trunk itself. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. I strained my ears, listening for anything else, footsteps, shifting air, even a whisper. Nothing. Just silence. My shaking fingers tapped the flashlight, and by some miracle, the beam sputtered back to life, weak but enough to cut through the suffocating shadows. The trunk stood before me, unmoved, locked tight, just as it had been. And yet, I knew what I had heard. The air felt thicker now, as if the room itself was watching me. Slowly, I lowered myself to the ground and studied the trunk. The lock was not an ordinary padlock. It was a complex, old-fashioned mechanism, one I didn't recognize. Rust crusted around its edges, but it didn't seem broken. Whoever had sealed it had intended it to remain closed. But my uncle had hidden this room for a reason. And this trunk, this sealed, ominous chest, was the centerpiece of it all. I couldn't resist. I searched the shelves and drawers until I found an iron key, hidden inside a cracked wooden box beneath a pile of papers. It was heavy, ancient, with jagged edges. When I held it in my hand, it felt strangely warm, as though it had been waiting for me. My heart hammered as I slid it into the lock. The metal groaned. I twisted. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a loud snap echoed through the chamber. The trunk unlocked. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid, and the stale air that escaped smelled of dust, leather, and something metallic. Inside, neatly packed and preserved, were objects that didn't belong in any ordinary garage, or even in any ordinary life. At the top lay a set of leather-bound journals, their covers cracked, their pages yellowed with age. Beneath them, bundles of photographs, black and white, each marked with dates ranging from the 1940s to the 1970s. I lifted one photo and gasped. It showed a group of men in military uniforms, standing in front of a strange device. The device looked like a machine of wires, tubes, and antennas, almost alien in design. But here's what made my blood run cold. Standing among those men was my uncle. The photograph was dated 1952. But my uncle had been born in 1940. He would have been 12 years old at the time. My stomach twisted. Something was very, very wrong. I flipped through the journals, each page filled with detailed notes, diagrams of strange technology, sketches of underground tunnels and coded messages. My uncle had been documenting something enormous. At the bottom of the trunk, beneath the journals and photographs, I found a metal box the size of a briefcase. Its surface was engraved with unfamiliar symbols, sharp and angular, unlike any language I had ever seen. The box had no keyhole, no latch, no seam. It was seamless, as though it had been molded shut. Yet when I touched it, I swore I felt a faint vibration inside. The flashlight flickered again, the beam growing weaker. My breath quickened. This was more than a hidden garage secret. This was something buried, concealed, meant never to be uncovered. I forced myself to keep reading the journals, flipping page after page, until I stumbled upon one entry written in a shaking hand. If anyone finds this, leave it buried. The maps lead to places man was never meant to return to. The box, it's not from here. I couldn't destroy it. I couldn't understand it. I could only hide it. If they ever discover I failed, they'll come for whoever opens it next. And if you're reading this, it's already too late. The words sent a chill through my entire body. My hands trembled as I shut the journal. My uncle hadn't just been eccentric. He had been terrified. But terrified of what? Suddenly, I heard it again. the faint metallic click. This time, it wasn't the trunk. It came from the metal box. The vibration beneath my fingertips grew stronger, and for a split second, I thought I heard something else. A low, humming sound, as if a machine deep inside the box was stirring awake after decades of silence. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. My breath came in ragged gasps. What had I just awakened? The weak beam of my light swept across the underground chamber, landing on the maps pinned to the walls. And in that instant, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A single word had been scrawled across several of the maps in thick black ink. The same word, over and over again, circled in places across continents. Vault. The flashlight flickered one final time, and died. The chamber was swallowed in darkness once more. And this time, in the suffocating silence, I was no longer sure I was alone. The darkness pressed against me like a living thing. The air in the underground chamber had turned colder, heavier, and with every breath, I could hear the rasp of my own fear echoing off the walls. My flashlight had died, leaving me alone with only the echo of the word carved into my mind, vault. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, praying the battery still held. The glow of its screen sliced through the suffocating black, dim but enough to reveal the outlines of the maps, the journals, and that impossible metal box that still seemed to vibrate faintly on the table. My instincts screamed at me to leave it behind, to close the hatch upstairs, and never look back. But something stronger held me there. Curiosity, yes, but also the gnawing feeling that this was more than my uncle's secret. It was my inheritance, for better or worse. I turned back to the journals, flipping through them under the pale light of my phone. Page after page was filled with frantic scrawls, diagrams of circuits that looked alien, coordinates scrawled in code, and references to names I had never heard of: Vault 6, Vault 9, Vault 13. Each note seemed more paranoid than the last, but there was a consistency, a trail of thought that tied them all together. One passage stood out, written in a hand that seemed more desperate than the rest. The vaults are not shelters. They are prisons. Each one holds fragments of it. I was tasked to watch, to guard, but I failed. They will come for the box. If the vaults are opened, it won't just be a secret anymore. It will be an outbreak. Outbreak. The word gnawed at me. My hands grew clammy, the phone slipping slightly from my grip. Outbreak of what? Disease? A machine? Something alive? I leaned against the cold stone wall, my thoughts spinning. My uncle had been connected to something vast, something global. The photographs proved he had been involved long before his own time, as though history itself bent around him. The maps marked vaults across continents. And the box, the humming, sealed box, was the heart of it all. But then I noticed something else. On one of the pinned maps, just above the word vault, there was a circled location. Not in some faraway land, not on the other side of the world, but right here, within a few miles of the garage. My stomach dropped. The nearest vault wasn't far at all. I shoved the journals into my backpack, slipped the photos inside my jacket, and against every instinct screaming at me, I picked up the metal box. It was heavier than it looked, unnaturally so, as if its weight belonged to something far denser than metal. The humming grew faintly louder when I touched it, almost in rhythm with my heartbeat. I climbed the stairs back to the garage, the hatch groaning shut above me, sealing the underground chamber once more. The garage felt different now, as though the shadows leaned closer, aware of what I had unearthed. That night, sleep never came. I sat in my small apartment, the journals spread across my table, the box resting in the corner like an unspoken threat. My family mocked me for inheriting junk, but they had no idea. What I held wasn't junk. It was a key to a story buried for decades. By morning, I made my decision. I had to see it for myself. The vault. The coordinates in my uncle's notes pointed to an abandoned stretch of woodland just outside town. A place where no one went anymore, where the ground was soft, and the trees grew so thick they blotted out the sun. I drove there with the box beside me, its faint vibration filling the silence of the car. When I reached the spot, the woods swallowed me whole. My footsteps crunched on dead leaves as I followed the coordinates, my phone guiding me deeper until I stumbled into a clearing. And there, I saw it. Half buried in earth and ivy, hidden from anyone who might pass, was a structure of cold metal. Not a door, not a shack, but a hatch. Thick, rusted, reinforced, almost identical to the one I had found in the garage. Its surface was scarred, as though someone had tried to break into it long ago, and failed. I crouched down, brushing dirt away from the seam. The hatch was sealed, no handle, no lock. Just smooth, impenetrable steel. But as I placed the box down near it, the vibration grew stronger, and for the first time, I heard the hatch respond. A faint groan of shifting metal echoed beneath the ground. The vibration spread into the soil itself, humming through my knees as I crouched. The hatch wasn't just a door. It was alive, reacting to the presence of the box. I staggered back, my breath catching in my throat. The ground trembled faintly, and with it came a sound. A voice. Not words. Not language. Just a low, guttural resonance that seemed to rise from the earth itself. It wasn't human. It wasn't mechanical. It was something else entirely. And then, silence. The box went still. The vibration ceased. The hatch lay quiet once more, as if nothing had happened. But I knew what I had just witnessed. The box was a key. And the vault was waiting. My hands shook as I picked the box back up. The journals had warned me to leave it buried. My uncle had tried to keep this secret locked away for decades. And now, standing in that clearing, with the vault groaning faintly beneath my feet, I understood why. Because whatever was inside wasn't meant to be opened. Yet as I turned to leave, something caught my eye. Scratched faintly into the metal hatch, almost invisible beneath the rust, were 3 words. Do not return. I froze. The forest was silent around me, but in that silence, I could swear I heard something shift. Not underground. Behind me. The crunch of a single footstep on dry leaves. I wasn't alone. The sound of that footstep froze me in place. My blood turned to ice, and every muscle in my body tensed. Slowly, painfully, I turned my head toward the treeline, my heartbeat hammering so loudly I could barely hear anything else. At first, there was nothing. Just the skeletal arms of trees swaying in the breeze, their shadows stretching like claws across the ground. But then, in the farthest corner of the clearing, I caught it. Movement. A figure, half concealed in the undergrowth, watching me. I couldn't make out details, just a silhouette, tall and still, too still. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to call out, but my voice failed. For what felt like an eternity, we stared at each other across the clearing, the silence pressing in on me like a weight. And then, the figure stepped back. 1 step. Another. And then it was gone, swallowed by the forest as though it had never been there at all. My chest heaved as I forced myself to move, clutching the metal box to my chest as I stumbled through the trees, every branch snapping beneath my boots sounding like a gunshot in the quiet woods. My thoughts raced. Had someone followed me? Did they know about the garage? About the box? About the vault? By the time I reached my car, sweat drenched my back and my hands shook violently on the steering wheel. I drove without looking back, but even on the open road, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching me from just beyond sight. Back at my apartment, I locked every door, pulled every curtain, and set the box on the table under the harsh glow of the lamp. Its metallic surface reflected the light, the strange symbols etched into it almost glowing faintly. I opened the journals again, desperate for answers. And that's when I found it. A section I hadn't noticed before, tucked into the middle of one journal, pages marked with a different kind of ink, darker, fresher. My uncle had written about the Watchers. They are not government, not military, not even human in the sense we know. They guard the vaults, hidden in plain sight, tracking the box wherever it moves. Once the box is active, once it resonates, they awaken. If you see them, it is already too late. My blood went cold. The figure in the woods. The stillness. The silent retreat. Could it have been one of them? The words blurred before my eyes as panic clawed at me. If my uncle had been hunted, if he had lived in fear until his final days, then inheriting the garage hadn't been a gift. It had been a trap. I barely slept that night, haunted by shifting shadows outside my window, by the sensation of unseen eyes boring into me. Every sound of creaking pipes, every car passing in the distance felt like a signal, like they were closing in. But the box, the cursed, impossible box, wouldn't leave me alone. Around midnight, the humming began again. Faint at first, like the purr of an engine in the distance, then stronger, vibrating through the table, rattling the glasses in my cupboard. My lamp flickered, my phone screen glitched with static. And then I saw it. Symbols. Glowing faintly across the surface of the box, spreading like veins of light. They weren't random, they formed patterns, lines connecting, almost like a map. I grabbed a notebook and sketched as quickly as I could, tracing the lines. When the glow finally faded, my sketch revealed something that made my stomach twist. It was a map of the world. And on that map, several locations burned like beacons. The same ones my uncle had marked in his journals. Vaults. But there was one more. A new one. A place my uncle had never written about. And it was here. My town. I staggered back from the table, the notebook trembling in my hands. Why had it appeared now? Why had the box revealed another vault, so close to me? Unless the vault beneath the forest wasn't the only one. Unless there was something hidden even deeper, something my uncle hadn't found. As panic gnawed at me, I realized something terrifying. The figure in the woods hadn't been chasing me away. They had been waiting. Watching to see what I would do next. The thought was unbearable, but I knew what I had to do. If my uncle had spent his life running from this, hiding the truth, and if he had still failed, then I couldn't just ignore it. The vaults, the watchers, the box, they were connected, and I was already too deep in to turn back. I packed the journals, the maps, and the box into a duffel bag. If the vaults were prisons, I had to know what they held. If the box was a key, I had to understand what it unlocked. My uncle had left warnings, but he had also left a trail. And I couldn't shake the thought that maybe he wanted me, or someone, to finish what he started. But just as I zipped the bag shut, I froze. The air in the room shifted. Heavy. Pressing. As if someone else was there. I turned slowly, my breath caught in my chest. And there, just beyond the glass of my living room window, stood the same figure from the woods. Closer now. Clearer. It wasn't wearing clothes I recognized. Its outline was human, but its proportions were wrong. Too tall. Too thin. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and though its face was shrouded in shadow, I knew without question that it was staring at me. The lamp flickered violently. My heart nearly burst from my chest as I stumbled backward, clutching the bag, clutching the box. And then, without a sound, the figure raised its hand. 3 long fingers extended, pointing directly at me. That moment is carved into my memory forever. Standing in my dimly lit living room, staring through the glass at the figure outside. Its long, unnatural arm raised, 3 thin fingers pointing directly at me. The air grew so heavy I could hardly breathe. My legs locked in place, my throat dry, my heart drumming like it wanted to escape my chest. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. No movement. No footsteps. Just gone. The silence that followed was worse than the sight of it. Silence can be a predator too. I clutched the duffel bag, the weight of the box pulling at my shoulder, and I knew I couldn't stay there. My apartment was no longer safe. Maybe nowhere was. But the box had shown me a map, glowing veins of light across its strange surface. And one of those points pulsed here, in my own town. If I didn't find it, the watchers would. And maybe that was the only reason I was still alive. By dawn, I was back in the forest, following the coordinates. My body moved like it belonged to someone else, driven more by dread than courage. The trees loomed high, branches tangled like skeletal hands, and the ground was slick with dew. My boots sank into the soil with each step as if the earth itself wanted to pull me under. Deeper and deeper, until I reached the same clearing. The rusted hatch, scarred and silent, lay waiting. But this time, I knew what I had to do. I placed the box on the hatch. Instantly it responded. The vibration roared through the ground, stronger than before, rattling my bones. The air crackled, the trees around me groaning as if in pain. And slowly, impossibly, the hatch began to shift. Metal grinding against metal, rust flaking away, the earth trembling as the door opened for the first time in decades. A wave of cold air rushed up, sharp and metallic, carrying with it the smell of dust, oil, and something else. Something ancient. The box grew hot under my hand, its glow pulsing in rhythm with the hatch's movements. My uncle had warned me, begged me, to leave it buried. But now it was too late. I had set it in motion. I stepped forward. The vault yawned open, a staircase descending into shadows far darker than the garage's hidden chamber. I switched on a flashlight, this time a new one, fresh batteries, and began the descent. Each step echoed, hollow and unnatural, as though the stairs themselves weren't made by human hands. At the bottom, I found myself in a vast chamber. Larger than I could have imagined. The walls were lined with strange machinery, towering columns of steel and glass, wires webbing across the ceiling like veins. Some of the machines hummed faintly, impossibly still alive after all these years. Others leaked a strange vapor that coiled across the floor like fog. And in the center of the vault was the source. A massive structure, suspended within a cage of metal beams. Its shape was wrong, jagged, curved, organic yet mechanical. It pulsed faintly, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. And on its surface, etched deep into its shell, were the same symbols that covered the box. The journals had been right. The vault wasn't a shelter. It was a prison. And inside that prison was something alive. My chest tightened as I stepped closer. The glow from the box grew brighter, responding to the structure, resonating with it. The vibration rattled through the floor, through my bones, through my teeth. The machine, or creature, stirred. For a moment, I thought it was waking. But then I realized, it wasn't asleep. It was sealed. Trapped. And the box wasn't just a key. It was a tether. A way to connect to whatever this thing was. I lifted the box, and in that instant, visions slammed into me. Not dreams, not memories, but flashes of something vast, something beyond comprehension. Cities I didn't recognize burning. Vaults cracking open across the world. Watchers standing in silence as civilizations crumbled. And then I saw him. My uncle. Standing in this very vault, years ago, holding the same box. His face pale, his hands trembling. And his voice echoing in my head. If you open it, they will come. If you free it, we all fall. The vision shattered. I staggered back, nearly dropping the box. My breath came in ragged gasps. I understood now. The Watchers weren't hunting me. They weren't even guarding me. They were guarding this thing. And I was the fool carrying the key straight to its prison. The ground shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. The pulsing structure flared with light, its jagged surface shifting, pressing against the beams that held it. The box in my hands grew hotter, the glow so bright it seared my vision. The Watchers would be here soon. I could feel it. The forest above had gone silent, unnaturally still, waiting for them. And I had a choice. Run, and leave this cursed inheritance for someone else to stumble upon. Or do what my uncle couldn't. End it. My uncle had written that he couldn't destroy the box. But maybe he hadn't tried hard enough. I lifted it high, my hands shaking, the heat burning my skin. And with every ounce of strength I had left, I hurled it against the jagged structure at the vault's core. The explosion of light was blinding. The sound was indescribable, not a noise, but a roar inside my skull, a scream of metal, stone, and something alive all at once. The walls shook, machinery sparking, the ground splitting beneath me. The vault wasn't just reacting. It was collapsing. I ran, stumbling up the stairs, the earth quaking under my feet. The hatch above loomed closer, daylight spilling through as the forest trembled. I burst into the clearing just as the vault behind me gave one final, deafening roar. And then silence. The hatch slammed shut, sealing itself with a final groan. The ground stilled. The air cleared. I collapsed to my knees, gasping, my ears ringing, my skin scorched where the box had burned me. And when I looked back, the hatch was gone. Buried. As if it had never existed. The watchers never came. Or maybe, they no longer needed to. I don't know what I destroyed that day, or if I destroyed it at all. Maybe I only delayed it. Maybe the vaults still wait, scattered across the world, their secrets pulsing in the dark. But I do know this, my family was wrong. The garage wasn't junk. It was a doorway. And what lay beneath it was never meant to be found. Sometimes, I wake in the night, my skin prickling, my ears straining for the sound of footsteps outside my window. Sometimes, I swear I hear that faint hum again, buried deep beneath the earth. And when I do, I wonder, did I end it that day? Or did I just wake it up?